The fragile fighter. The arena was packed with thousands of aliens from every corner of the galaxy. Bright lights flashed across the massive stadium. Banners hung high, each one mocking humans with words like fragile, weak, and easy prey. In the center of the arena, a huge alien named Grok stood tall. His skin was like thick armor and his arms were as wide as tree trunks. He flexed his muscles and roared, making the ground shake. The crowd cheered loudly, expecting an easy victory. Then, the gate on the other side of the arena opened. A human stepped out. A young man named Ethan. He looked small compared to Grok. His body was lean, not bulky. He wore simple armor and carried no heavy weapons. He only had a calm look in his eyes. The crowd burst into laughter. Some aliens even threw small objects onto the field, mocking him. "Fragile human!" they shouted. "He will break in seconds." Ethan didn't react. He simply walked to the center, his boots tapping softly against the hard ground. He looked up at Grok without fear. A small smile formed on his lips. "Let's see what breaks first," Ethan said quietly. But the words carried across the arena. The announcer, a tall creature with 3 eyes, raised a hand. "Begin!" he shouted. Grok wasted no time. He charged like a raging beast, swinging a massive club toward Ethan's head. The club was bigger than Ethan's whole body, but Ethan was ready. With a quick step to the side, he dodged the attack. The club smashed into the ground, sending dust flying. The ground cracked where the club landed. The crowd gasped, not because of the missed hit, but because Ethan was still standing untouched. Grok growled in anger and swung again, faster this time. Ethan ducked low, rolled forward, and avoided the second attack. Small cracks spread under Grok's feet as he stomped in frustration. "Stay still, you insect," Grok roared. Ethan didn't answer. He moved lightly, always one step ahead, always calm. He watched Grok carefully, studying him. The giant alien lifted a huge stone from the ground and threw it. The stone hurtled toward Ethan like a meteor. With perfect timing, Ethan jumped to the side. The stone smashed into the arena wall, breaking it. The aliens watching began to shift uncomfortably. This was not what they expected. Humans were supposed to be slow, weak, easy to crush. Ethan knew he could not win with strength. He had to use speed, skill, and the aliens' own power against him. Grok, now furious, charged again. This time, Ethan ran directly toward him. The crowd gasped, thinking Ethan had lost his mind. At the last moment, Ethan slid under Grok's legs. With a sharp move, he kicked at Grok's knee from behind. The alien stumbled, losing balance for just a second. Ethan stood up quickly and landed a punch right under Grok's arm. A soft spot, not covered by armor-like skin. Grok staggered back a step. It was not much, but it was enough. The aliens in the crowd grew silent. Ethan circled him, light on his feet, never staying in one place for too long. He waited for Grok's next mistake. Flashbacks of Ethan's training on Earth filled his mind. Years of being called weak. Years of being pushed harder than anyone else. They told him he would never be strong enough. But he never gave up. Every fall made him sharper, faster, smarter. Now here in the alien arena, it was time to prove everyone wrong. Grok roared and lifted his club for a final strike. He ran forward, putting all his strength into one crushing blow. Ethan saw the opening. He sprinted straight at Grok, faster than ever. Just before the club came down, Ethan jumped and rolled to the side. The club smashed into the ground with a deafening boom. The ground split wide open. The shockwave threw dust into the air, blinding everyone for a moment. When the dust cleared, Ethan stood safely a few feet away. Grok was struggling to lift his club, which had gotten stuck in the cracked ground. Seizing the moment, Ethan rushed forward. He climbed up Grok's arm with quick movements and punched him hard behind the head. The only place Grok's natural armor was thin. Grok roared in pain and dropped to one knee. The arena was completely silent now. Not a single alien dared to laugh. Ethan stood tall, breathing hard but still steady. He looked around at the thousands of shocked faces. "So," he said with a small grin, "what broke first?" The bell rang. The fight was over. Ethan had won. The fragile fighter was not so fragile after all. The first crack, the air inside the arena was heavy. Thousands of aliens sat frozen in shock, unable to believe what they had just seen. The human, the one they had laughed at, had beaten their strongest warrior without even lifting a heavy weapon. Ethan stood still, his chest rising and falling with steady breaths. His knuckles ached from the final punch, but he kept his face calm. He knew better than to show weakness now. Gruck, the fallen giant, was dragged away by 4 guards. The ground where he had fallen was still cracked and broken. Small pieces of the arena floor crumbled away under the weight of the defeat. The announcer, clearly nervous, tried to regain control. He cleared his throat loudly and said, surprise victory by the human fighter. But the next challenge will be even harder." The crowd slowly began to murmur. Some booed, some whispered in fear. Others simply watched Ethan with new eyes, unsure whether to fear him or mock him again. Ethan ignored them all. He looked down at his fists and flexed his fingers. There was more coming. He could feel it. Suddenly, a deep rumble shook the arena. The ground trembled. Banners fell from the ceiling. Cracks spread wider across the floor. A massive door on the far side of the arena began to open. "Second fight. Now," the announcer said, his voice shaking. Ethan narrowed his eyes. He could see 2 figures stepping into the light. Not one opponent, 2. Both aliens were tall, their skin a dark metallic blue. Their eyes glowed yellow. They carried weapons, long, sharp spears that hummed with deadly energy. Ethan exhaled slowly. This was not a fair fight, but then again, nothing in his life had ever been fair. The crowd found their voice again, roaring with excitement. They believed now that the human could not survive. 2 champions at once? Impossible. The first alien pointed his spear at Ethan. "You are no hero, fragile one," he growled. "You are a crack in the ground, and cracks break wide open." Ethan said nothing. He simply dropped into a low stance, ready. The second alien charged first, spear thrust forward. Ethan moved fast. The spear missed him by an inch, slicing the air where he had been standing. Before the second alien could react, Ethan spun and kicked him hard in the back of the knee. The alien stumbled, but the first alien was already there, swinging his spear, in a deadly arc. Ethan ducked low, the tip of the spear barely grazing his hair. He rolled to the side, feeling the sharpness cut a few strands away. This was different from before. Gruck had been big and slow. These 2 were fast. Deadly. Ethan knew he could not afford even a single mistake. They attacked together, moving like hunters who had done this 100 times before. One aimed high, the other low. One distracted, the other struck. Ethan dodged, blocked, ducked. He moved like a shadow, always a second ahead of their blades. But even shadows get tired. After several minutes of fighting, Ethan felt his legs growing heavier. His breath came faster. Sweat dripped into his eyes. He needed a plan. Fast. He noticed something. The 2 aliens were too confident. They assumed he would stay defensive, always running, always avoiding. Maybe it was time to crack their plan. Ethan pretended to stumble. He let himself fall to one knee, breathing hard. The aliens grinned. They saw weakness. They rushed forward together, spears ready to strike the final blow. But Ethan was waiting. At the last moment, he rolled forward between them. Their spears clashed into each other with a loud crack. The force of their own attack made them stagger. Ethan didn't waste a second. He jumped up, grabbed the spear of the second alien, and twisted it sharply. The alien cried out as his weapon was ripped from his hands. Before the first alien could react, Ethan spun and struck him across the face with the butt of the stolen spear. The alien dropped to the ground, dazed. The crowd gasped. Some stood up in disbelief. Ethan faced the last standing alien, weaponless now but still burning with rage. The alien roared and charged blindly. Ethan sidestepped, hooked the alien's leg, and sent him crashing into the broken arena floor. Cracks spread wider under the weight. The announcer, voice trembling, shouted, "The human has defeated both champions." But Ethan knew it was not over. He looked up at the viewing platform high above the arena. Alien lords and nobles watched him carefully now. No longer laughing, no longer smiling, they were worried. The first crack had appeared, not just in the arena floor, but in their pride, in their control. And cracks, Ethan knew, always grow bigger. He stood tall, blood trickling from a cut on his cheek, and raised the stolen spear high. The fragile fighter had survived again, but deeper battles were coming. Battles that could not be won with fists alone. The strength inside the arena floor was broken, cracked like glass under the weight of the battles. Blood and dust mixed in the air, making it hard to breathe. But Ethan stood there, steady, holding the alien spear firmly in his hand. The crowd was silent, watching closely. Whispers passed between them like cold wind. Some called him lucky. Others started to believe he was something more, something dangerous. Above the arena, in the royal box, alien nobles gathered together. Their bright clothes and golden badges looked heavy under the weight of fear. "This human," said one lord, voice tight. "He should not have survived. No one survives two champions." Another lord leaned closer, eyes narrow. "Maybe we have misunderstood the humans. Maybe their strength is different." Ethan couldn't hear their words, but he could feel their eyes burning into him. The announcer, looking pale and nervous, called out, "Prepare for the next trial." Ethan didn't move. He stood still, feeling the weight of his memories. He remembered the cold mornings on Earth, training before the sun rose. He remembered the endless drills, the bruises that never healed in time. He remembered being told over and over, humans are fragile, not fit for the stars. But he also remembered something stronger. His mother's words whispered in the dark when he thought no one believed in him. "Strength isn't about muscles, Ethan. Strength is what keeps you standing when everything tries to break you." He held onto that now, like a flame in the freezing dark. The gates on the other side of the arena creaked open again. This time, no champion stepped out. Instead, machines rolled forward. Huge metallic beasts taller than any creature Ethan had ever faced. Battle drones, armed with blades, blasters, and shields, built only for one purpose: destruction. The crowd roared, sensing blood. Ethan tightened his grip on the spear. He was tired. His muscles burned. But he would not fall. Not yet. The first machine charged forward, its wheels spinning fast. It fired a bolt of energy at Ethan. He jumped to the side, feeling the heat brush past his skin. The spear in his hands hummed with strange energy. Alien tech, unfamiliar but powerful. Another machine came at him from the left, swinging a sharp blade. Ethan ducked low and jabbed the spear upward. Sparks flew as the spear tore into the machine's underside. It shuddered and crashed into the ground, broken, before he could breathe. Two more came at once. Ethan ran toward them instead of away. He dodged one and leaped over the second, landing hard but moving fast. He spun the spear, slashing wires and joints. The machines fell, broken and smoking. The crowd screamed in anger and awe. High above, the alien lords watched with dark faces. "He is not just strong," one said in fear. "He is learning." On the arena floor, Ethan's mind raced. He couldn't rely on strength alone. He had to think. He had to be faster, smarter. He noticed the drones moved in patterns, predictable. If he could get them to clash into each other, a plan formed quickly. Ethan dodged another blaster shot and ran toward the nearest machine. He ducked behind it just as two more fired their weapons. The blasts hit the machine instead of Ethan, blowing it apart. Pieces of metal rained down. Ethan moved like lightning, using the wreckage as cover. He sprinted, jumped, and rolled across the battlefield, making the machines hit each other by mistake. One by one, they fell. But the biggest one was still coming. A massive drone rolled out of the shadows. Taller than a house. Heavy cannons on its arms. Armor thick enough to survive a meteor hit. The arena floor shook under its weight. Ethan paused, breathing hard. He had no shield, no armor. Only a stolen spear and his will to survive. The giant drone locked onto him. Its cannons hummed, charging up. Ethan ran. The first blast missed him by inches, leaving a smoking hole in the ground. The second blast came, fast. Ethan jumped, but the shockwave caught him, throwing him across the arena. He hit the ground hard, pain exploding through his side. His vision blurred. The spear slipped from his hand. For a moment, Ethan lay there, the world spinning. The giant drone approached, each step a heavy thunder. The crowd held their breath. Was this it? Had the human finally reached his limit? Somewhere deep inside, Ethan heard his mother's voice again. Strength is standing back up. He gritted his teeth, forcing himself up. Every muscle screamed in pain, but he stood. He picked up the spear and faced the giant machine. He ran straight toward it. The drone fired again, but Ethan zigzagged, moving unpredictably. He closed the distance, getting under its cannons. The machine tried to stomp him, but Ethan rolled between its legs, slashing at the thin joints behind the knees. A loud cracking sound echoed. The drone stumbled. Ethan didn't stop. He climbed onto its back, finding weak spots, tearing wires with the spear, using his bare hands when he had to. The giant machine shook wildly, trying to throw him off. With a final roar, Ethan drove the spear deep into the core. The machine let out a high-pitched scream and collapsed. Dust and silence filled the arena once again. Ethan fell to his knees, exhausted but alive. The crowd rose to their feet, no longer laughing, no longer mocking, only silent, afraid, and amazed. Ethan had shown them the real strength of a human. Not muscle, not armor, the strength inside. The fall of the giant, the dust settled slowly over the ruined arena. Broken machines lay scattered like dead insects. The cracked ground bore the scars of the brutal battle, but at the center of the destruction one figure still stood, a human, bloodied but unbowed. Ethan breathed heavily, each breath scraping against broken ribs. Pain shot through his side, but he ignored it. He could not show weakness now. Not when the whole galaxy seemed to be watching him. In the stands, the alien spectators shifted uneasily. Their laughter had died. Their smiles had vanished. A heavy silence pressed down on them like a storm about to break. High above, in the royal box, the alien lords held a secret meeting behind dark curtains. Their voices were low, tense, urgent. "He should not have survived," hissed one lord. "This is dangerous. If humans believe they can fight us, they will rise." Another slammed his fist onto the table. "We must crush him now. No more games." A third lord leaned back, eyes cold. "Then unleash the Colossus." The others fell silent. They all knew what that meant. Back in the arena, Ethan wiped blood from his mouth and looked toward the massive gate at the far end. He could feel it before he even saw it, a deep rumbling in the ground, like a living earthquake. The gate shook violently. Dust and pieces of stone fell from the ceiling. With a deafening roar, the gates burst open. From the darkness emerged something no one had seen for centuries. A giant. Not a machine. Not an alien soldier. A real, living titan from a forgotten world. It stood nearly 3 times the height of the largest alien warrior. Its skin was like blackened stone. Its eyes burned red like molten lava. Chains still hung from its massive arms, though many were broken. The crowd gasped in terror. Ethan stared up at the monster, his heart pounding. This was no normal enemy. This was a weapon created for only one purpose: total destruction. The giant stomped into the arena, every step sending tremors through the ground. It let out a deep, rumbling growl that made even the bravest aliens shrink back in their seats. The announcer's voice cracked as he tried to sound strong. "The final trial. The Colossus." Ethan tightened his grip on the broken alien spear. He knew it would not be enough. Not against something like this. The Colossus roared again and charged. Ethan ran. The giant's first strike smashed the ground. Behind him, sending a shockwave that nearly knocked Ethan off his feet. He dodged left, right, rolling, jumping, but the giant was faster than it looked. Each swing of its massive fist tore the ground apart. Ethan barely avoided a crushing blow. feeling the wind of the strike brush his back. He needed a plan. Brute strength would not win here. He remembered the cracks in the arena floor. The weakened ground from the earlier fights. Maybe he could use that. Ethan ran toward the most broken part of the arena, dodging flying debris. He stopped just before a deep crack and turned to face the giant. He shouted, waving the spear, taunting the beast. The colossus roared and charged. At the last moment, Ethan dove to the side. The giant's heavy foot landed directly on the cracked ground. For a second, nothing happened. Then the floor gave way with a thunderous roar. The giant stumbled, its legs sinking deep into the broken ground. It roared in rage, struggling to pull itself free. Ethan saw his chance. He sprinted forward, climbed up the tangled chains hanging from the giant's arm, and raced up its massive body like a spider on a wall. The colossus swung wildly, trying to swat him away, but Ethan was too fast, too determined. He climbed higher, reaching the giant's neck where the skin was rough but not as hard. Gripping the spear tightly, Ethan drove it deep into the softest spot he could find. The giant let out a deafening scream, shaking violently. Ethan held on with everything he had. The colossus thrashed, but its struggles only made the cracks widen beneath it. The ground collapsed even more, pulling the giant down. With a final earth-shaking roar, the colossus fell backward into the pit it had helped create, disappearing into darkness. The arena shook one last time and then fell silent. Ethan lay flat on the broken ground, gasping for air. He had done it. He had brought down the giant. Slowly, painfully, he got to his feet. The crowd, stunned into silence, now watched him with something new in their eyes, fear and awe. For the first time, they understood. The human was not fragile. He was unstoppable. Ethan raised his head and looked straight at the royal box. He knew this was bigger than just a fight. This was a message to every alien lord who thought they ruled the galaxy, to every world that thought humans were weak. The message was simple. They were wrong. And now, nothing could stop what was coming next. Whispers of fear. The arena was broken, silent, and heavy with smoke. Pieces of the floor still crumbled into the deep hole where the colossus had fallen. But all eyes were on the lone figure standing tall at the center. Ethan, the human who refused to break. He wiped the blood from his forehead and stared up at the royal box. His chest burned with every breath, but he would not kneel. Not here. Not now. Up above, hidden behind thick glass and golden shields, the alien lords whispered in panic. "He cannot be allowed to leave this arena alive," said one, voice trembling. "We underestimated them," said another. "Humans, they are not fragile. They are something else. Something dangerous," muttered a third. Their fear grew like a dark cloud, heavy and suffocating. No one dared to speak too loudly. The human had shown them something they thought impossible. He had beaten their greatest champions, their strongest machines, and even their ancient giant. What if others like him existed? What if humans could not be controlled? Down below, in the cracked stands, the ordinary aliens who had come to laugh at Ethan now sat frozen. Some looked at him with wide, fearful eyes. Others whispered quickly, their faces pale. Small murmurs traveled through the crowd, spreading like wildfire. Did you see how he moved? He fought like he was born for war. No chains could hold him. Maybe humans are stronger than we ever knew. Fear was a powerful thing. It grew in the hearts of the people faster than any sword or weapon. Ethan could feel it. He didn't need to hear their whispers. He could see it in their eyes, feel it in the way the air itself seemed heavier now. He had cracked more than the arena floor. He had cracked their belief that humans were weak. He knew what would happen next. They would try to kill him, not in a fair fight, not face to face. They would use poison, traps, assassins in the dark. He had become a threat. Ethan closed his eyes for a moment, gathering his strength. He thought of Earth, the blue skies, the green fields, the endless oceans. He thought of the people who had told him he would never make it. He thought of his mother's words, "You are stronger than you know." The announcer, voice shaking, spoke again. The trials are over. The human has proven himself victorious. There was no cheer, no celebration, only silence and fear. Soldiers began to appear around the edges of the arena. Not the honor guard, not officials. Real soldiers, armed, armored, deadly. Ethan opened his eyes and smiled grimly. So it begins. He bent down, picked up a fallen shield from one of the broken machines, and strapped it to his arm. It was battered and cracked, but it would. Two of the soldiers moved in, forming a circle around him. The lead officer stepped forward, helmet shining under the broken lights. "You have shown strength," he said, voice cold, "but you are still a prisoner. Surrender now, human." Ethan said nothing. He tightened his grip on the shield. The officer raised a hand, and the soldiers aimed their weapons. Up in the royal box, the lords leaned forward, eyes gleaming. This was it. This was where the fragile human would finally fall. But Ethan had other plans. He ran, not away, straight toward them. The soldiers fired. Blasts of energy lit up the arena. Ethan ducked behind the shield, feeling the impact slam into the metal. Sparks flew everywhere. He moved fast, weaving through the blast, dodging, sliding, rolling. He reached the first soldier and slammed into him with the shield, sending him flying. Before the others could react, Ethan grabbed the fallen soldier's weapon and fired back. He didn't aim to kill, only to create chaos. The soldiers panicked, their formation breaking. The crowd screamed and scrambled for safety. In the confusion, Ethan sprinted toward the side of the arena where a maintenance gate stood half broken from the earlier battles. He crashed through it, disappearing into the shadows beyond. The alien lords stood frozen. They had sent their greatest weapons. They had sent their strongest soldiers, and the human had escaped. The whispers of fear turned into roars of anger and panic. "Find him!" shouted one lord. "He cannot leave the city alive," screamed another. But deep down they all knew it was too late. The seed of fear had been planted, and fear grows fast, faster than any wall can rise, faster than any army can march. Ethan was no longer just a fighter in an arena. He was a symbol, and symbols were harder to kill than men. Far below, in the dark tunnels under the city, Ethan ran. His body ached, his wounds bled, but his spirit burned brighter than ever. They had called him fragile. Now, they called him something else. Something that whispered through every street, every hall, every heart, hope. The unbreakable, the tunnels under the arena were dark and cold, filled with the echoes of distant alarms. Dim lights flickered along the walls, casting long, shaky shadows. Every step Ethan took was heavy, his body bruised and bleeding, but his mind was sharp, burning with one thought: survive. He moved quickly through the winding tunnels, listening carefully. Above him, the city roared with panic. Soldiers scrambled across the streets, searching every alley, every door. Patrols barked orders, setting traps to catch him. But Ethan was no ordinary prisoner anymore. He was the crack they could not seal. He was the fear they could not silence. And now, he was the fire they could not put out. Somewhere deep in the maze of tunnels, Ethan stopped. He pressed his back against the wall and closed his eyes for a moment. He forced himself to breathe slow and steady. His mind flashed back again to Earth, to the brutal training fields where he learned to fight not with strength but with endurance, where he learned that real power wasn't in the first punch, but in standing after the last. "You are not made to break," his mentor once told him. "You are made to endure." Footsteps echoed down the tunnel. Ethan opened his eyes. A squad of alien soldiers appeared, armed with rifles and glowing energy nets. They scanned the darkness carefully, their weapons raised. Ethan knew he couldn't fight them head-on, but he didn't need to. He moved like a shadow, silent and deadly. As the soldiers passed, Ethan struck. Quick, precise, without mercy. He took down the first one silently, grabbing his rifle before it hit the floor. Then the second, then the third. Within minutes, the squad was down, their bodies slumped against the walls. Ethan didn't stay. He kept moving, deeper into the city's underbelly. Everywhere he went, he left a trail of fear behind him. Rumors spread faster than the soldiers could chase him. The human cannot be caught. He walks through walls. He fights like a ghost. The alien lords high in their towers grew more desperate. They sent more soldiers. They closed the gates. They offered gold for his head. But every trap they set only showed them how unstoppable he had become. One night, as Ethan moved through the ruins of an old market, he found something strange. Hidden beneath the broken stalls and dusty cloths, a group of aliens huddled together, civilians, not soldiers. Old ones, young ones, workers, shopkeepers. They looked at him with wide, fearful eyes. Ethan raised his hand slowly, showing he meant no harm. But then something unexpected happened. A small alien child stepped forward, carrying a piece of bread in his hands. He held it out to Ethan. A gift. An act of hope. Ethan knelt and accepted it with a soft nod. The others began to move too, offering water, bandages, supplies. They had seen the games. They had seen the human who stood against giants. And now, they believed, not in his strength, but in what he represented. Freedom. Hope. Change. Ethan stayed only long enough to eat and wrap his wounds. He could not risk leading soldiers to these people. He thanked them with a look, then disappeared into the shadows once more. The lords called him a danger. The soldiers called him a ghost. But to the common people, he was something greater. He was the unbreakable. Weeks passed. Ethan struck where they least expected, disabling patrols, freeing prisoners, tearing down statues of power with his bare hands. Every night, new whispers filled the streets. He is still out there. The human fights for all of us. They can't stop him. Panic spread through the city like a disease. The soldiers grew tired. The lords grew fearful. Even the walls of the city, once thought unbreakable, began to crumble under the weight of fear. One night, the lords gathered in secret. "We must end this," one said, his voice full of anger and terror. "Send the executioners, send the assassins, send everything we have." Another lord, older and wiser, shook his head slowly. "You don't understand," he said, voice cold. "You can't kill an idea." "Then what do we do?" cried another. The old lord leaned forward, his eyes full of dread. "Pray," he whispered. Deep below, Ethan prepared for the final move. He had learned their streets, their tunnels, their weaknesses. And now he would strike not at the soldiers, not at the gates, but at the heart of their power, the palace. He strapped the stolen weapons to his back, tightened the makeshift armor he had built from broken pieces of metal, and looked up at the dark night sky. The city thought he would run. They thought he would hide. They were wrong. He was coming, and nothing could stop him. Because the unbreakable doesn't run. The unbreakable rises. What truly breaks? The night was heavy over the alien city, thick with clouds that swallowed the stars. The streets were almost empty now, except for soldiers patrolling with weapons ready, eyes wide with fear. The city walls, once proud and glowing with lights, now flickered like dying fires. Deep in the shadows, Ethan moved. His body was battered, covered in bruises and blood. Every step ached. Every breath was a struggle. But his spirit was sharp, burning hotter than ever. Tonight was the end. Tonight, the empire that called humans fragile would learn what truly breaks. He crept through the ruins, past broken markets and shattered statues. The symbols of alien power lay crumbled around him. The people hidden behind cracked doors and broken windows watched in silence. They didn't cheer. They didn't shout. But their eyes followed him, full of hope. Hope was dangerous. Hope was contagious. Ethan reached the edge of the royal palace, a monstrous tower of black stone and silver steel. It rose high into the night sky like a dagger aimed at the stars. Guards swarmed the base, dozens of them, armed and armored. Ethan waited in the darkness, studying them. He knew a direct attack would be suicide, so he created fear instead. He picked up a small stone and threw it against the far wall with a sharp crack. Instantly, the guards turned, weapons raised, shouting to each other. In that moment of confusion, Ethan slipped through a broken sewer grate at the side of the palace, a secret path he had learned from the workers who once dared to whisper to him. Inside the palace, the halls were cold and wide, lit by pale blue flames. The walls were covered in banners, showing the proud history of the alien empire. Battles won, worlds conquered, humans enslaved. Ethan moved fast and silent. He knew where he had to go, the heart of the palace, the throne room, where the emperor sat, the one who had called for Ethan's death, the one who had laughed when humans were chained like animals. He climbed narrow stairways, slipped through servant passages, avoided patrols. Every step brought him closer, and every step made the fear grow stronger, not inside him but inside the palace itself. Whispers filled the empty halls. The human is here. He comes for the emperor. He cannot be stopped. The guards tightened their patrols, but their hands shook on their weapons. Their armor felt heavier. Their courage cracked like thin ice under too much weight. Ethan reached the final door, tall, black, and covered in golden symbols. 2 elite guards stood in front, massive and cold. Ethan stepped into the light. The guards raised their weapons. "Stop," one shouted. Ethan didn't stop. He ran straight at them, shield raised. The first guard fired. The blast hit the shield, throwing sparks, but Ethan pushed through. He slammed into the first guard, knocking him back hard against the wall. The second guard swung a heavy blade, aiming for Ethan's side. Ethan ducked low and drove his shoulder into the guard's leg, sending him crashing to the floor. He didn't waste time. He kicked open the heavy throne room doors. They swung wide with a booming sound inside. The throne room was massive and empty, except for one figure, the emperor. He sat on a tall, cold throne wearing black and silver robes, a crown of sharp metal on his head. His eyes were hard, full of pride and hatred. He stood slowly as Ethan approached. "You think you have won, human?" the emperor said, voice echoing in the vast hall. Ethan said nothing. His silence was louder than any words. "You are alone," the emperor sneered. "One fragile creature against an empire." Ethan stopped a few feet away, shield cracked, clothes torn, face bruised. He spoke then, voice steady and sharp. "I'm not alone." Outside, as if summoned by his words, a deep roar filled the night. The people of the city, the workers, the farmers, the forgotten ones, and it gathered. They filled the streets holding torches, holding broken weapons, holding hope. They had seen Ethan fight. They had seen him stand when no one else dared. And now they stood too. The emperor heard the roar, and for the first time true fear flickered in his eyes. "You broke our chains," Ethan said softly, "and thought we would stay quiet." He stepped closer. "You tried to break our bodies." He stepped closer still. "But you never understood." Ethan raised the battered shield. What truly breaks first is fear. The emperor drew a hidden dagger from his robes and lunged, but Ethan was faster. He dodged the blade, grabbed the emperor's arm and twisted it hard. The dagger clattered to the floor. Ethan shoved the emperor back onto the cold throne. He didn't need to kill him. He had already defeated him because the emperor's power wasn't built on strength. It was built on fear. And tonight, that fear had broken. The people stormed the palace, filling the halls with their cries of freedom. The guards threw down their weapons. The banners fell. The empire cracked and crumbled in a single night. And at the center of it all stood Ethan, broken in body, unbreakable in spirit. The human they had called fragile, the human who had shown them what true strength looked like. And when the morning light finally broke over the city, it was not the human who had fallen. It was the empire,